Welcome everybody to Earn More Tutoring, episode 61. I'm here with Kelly Biltz of Teens with ADHD. Hey, Kelly.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
So very excited to be chatting with you today. As you know, if you've listened to previous episodes of Earn More Tutoring, the focus of this show is to help educators eradicate poverty. We're trying to make sure that educators, teachers, anyone who wants to build a career in education has a pathway to create their own business and has the skills and expertise to do that. So, Kelly, you're obviously a fantastic example of someone who's taken your expertise around coaching, built a successful business, and so let's kind of dive into that. So Kelly, tell us a little bit about the high level overview of what you do.
High level overview. It first and foremost, it doesn't happen overnight. It's taken me years to get here, but basically, when I niched down a couple years ago and decided this is who I want to work with, I work with high schoolers who have ADHD. So I've created various programs for teens, high schoolers, if I may, to be in my world. And my signature program is the year long August through May school year, where I partner with high schoolers. Most of them stay with me the whole high school year, as you know, the challenges of managing all the parts and the activities and school and everything like that can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, and one thing that I had, the way I came about your work was you speak at so many different places, sharing your expertise at so many summits. And so it's like, I'm like, who is this person who's able to get her message out so effectively, which I'm sure helps attract new clients and people who want your services. So how does that play into your bigger picture work that you're doing as far as, getting
Yeah,
out?
I think on any given year, I'll speak on like 6 or 8 summits or webinars or something, not webinars, but summits where you have, the 15 to 20, the ones that you and I have been on. And again, that doesn't happen overnight, but I started really once I started niching down and growing my Facebook group. One person came in there, she runs a lot. And then once other hosts, excuse me, not hosters, that was so incorrect. Other hosts see like who these other speakers are, then they start reaching out. And so I speak on the ADHD toolbox a lot. Laura Dawn in the ADHD Village, she has a lot of contacts. And then people in my local community, I live in North Carolina, so there's a few podcasters and big event kind of people that run these parenting executive function kind of summits. And it just sort of, you get the emails, you sign up, you do your whole bio thing. And then that's been really helpful to just reach the masses, right? Because we can only do so much. But when you see various people free program for these parents, like for them to have, the potential resources, watching something for a half hour is great, because that's what we do because we want to nurture and care for those who maybe not be able or at a point where they can work with you privately.
How did you start this work? Were you always an executive function coach? How did you begin to do this type of work?
I went through, well, I did all my training with International ADHD Coach Training with Laura Dupar. She's out in Seattle area, Washington area. And I went through her training. And when I first began coaching, I work with everyone, like most coaches do, because I'm like, I want to work with everyone and it's great and what have you. And I started really going crazy on social media, which is funny because I'm not on social media personally at all. Very, very, very minimally. And actually it was a big obstacle for me to overcome, getting out there in social media and doing something that I really loathed doing, if I may. And so after about 2 years in my business manager said to me, who do you want to work with? Because your message is way too broad. And that was after a major, massive fail of a course and a launch and what have you. Like when I say major fail, like 6 months in the making, 500 people attended and nobody converted. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I failed forward, if I may. And as a, at the time you feel like literally I was licking my wounds for like 2 or 3 months and I didn't want to talk to anyone. So all that being said, my business manager said, your message is too broad. Your message is too broad. You're too vast. Who do you want to work with? I'm like, well, teenagers, that's my gig. Like, I get them. I have them, right? I also have stepchildren, and they came to me as teenagers. So I've been step parenting for 23 years in the teenage world. So that's how, as soon as I started niching down and really my message started resonating, that's what happened. And then from there, through that, I created a program because I figured out that most of these kids needed a longer program to help support them and keep them on task for the academic school year.
So you take the stance that niche is pronounced niche and not niche, right? Or you're on the niche.
Right? I say niche.
No, I think it's tomato, but I heard this quote and it was like,
Niche,
the
niche.
riches are in the niches, but it wouldn't rhyme if it was the riches are in the niches. So, so I just want to make sure we're okay. You're in that camp because my camp is the niches.
Okay, so I'm the niche. Whatever. I'm so bad with my grammar. Forgive me.
No, it's tomato.
Niche. However you pronounce it, NICHE.
No, but I only bring that up because I think your message is super important, right? You have like fail forward, great message, right? You have to try things in order to be successful, to have an audience, right? I mean, first off, it's amazing that you had 500 people show up. It's even more amazing that none of them converted, but I'm sure you learned so much from that. Let's go back to that. What did you learn? I mean, it sounds like niching down or niching down is the key there, but what did you learn from having 500 people show up and not converting any of them to clients? Because I know that is not the case nowadays with the work you do. But yeah, what did you learn from that?
Right. And I think part of it was the parents who I was speaking to, it was more, I don't think the parents who were on wanted resources for their teenager. And I had launched a parent academy course and membership kind of thing where giving the parents the tools. And there's definitely a train of thought where in high school, the parents are exhausted and maybe don't want to or are not seeking a coach because they really want a coach to work with their kids, right? So I think it was that. I think it was a longer program that they weren't doing. And obviously something with my pitch and my message wasn't resonating, even though I felt like I knew all the pain points, which I know all the pain points now, but they just weren't, they wanted to take away something from that webinar. And I believe that they did as far as a parenting perspective, but it wasn't strong enough for them to obviously, register and pull the trigger on that. Because and that's the thing with high schoolers, like even now, it's interesting when I have parents come to me and say, can you work with me one-on-one? Because it's not, I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I've tried everything. So I'm not used to high school parents coming to me because many years, 2 or 3 years ago, that was pretty much who I was talking to and running all these parent programs and what have you. So yeah.
So walk me through the timeline, because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with how long they think it's going to take to like start a successful business or to start even a micro business, right? Because you're like what I would call a micro business where you don't have a bunch of staff. You're operating this on your own. You have VAs or virtual assistants and coaches and things like that. But that's kind of the ideal for a lot of people is they don't want employees. So, from the moment of, okay, it sounds like you were like, I'm going to do this certification program to right now where clearly you have, background, you have a Facebook group of 6,000 plus people. You've got very significant, I think, did you say around 9,000 people on your email list or so?
Yes.
So it's like, that's huge, right? There's a lot that can be done with those types of numbers, especially in such a niche field like executive function coaching, where you don't need 100,000 people on your email list to, convert, right? Because they're coming for such a specific problem. So, I mean, if you have 500 people on your email list, you're great. I mean, you can be doing some amazing things, but you've far surpassed that. So give us the timeline of like thought, I want to do this to, where you're at now. What does that timeline look like?
So I think it depends on how you classify success and where you feel like you've made it. And for me, it didn't happen overnight. And I think somewhere along the lines, I've heard stay, it takes an entrepreneur 2 to 3 years to feel like, don't give up on your business for the first 2 or 3 years, because you're literally failing forward. You're learning things. You're learning about how to present yourself on video. You're learning about social media. You're learning your craft. You're fine tuning your craft, right? So all of that said, at what point do you feel like you've made it? And I think for me, especially now, when I can fill up pretty much all of my programs by either emailing or being live in a live feed in my parenting group. I go live 2 or 3 times a week. And I also, my dog's going to bark because somebody's going to drop something off here. And don't ring the bell, please. Please, sorry, don't ring the bell. She's just going to put it on there and she's going to ring the bell. There we go.
It's there you go. Sorry. Actually, we planned that, everyone. Anyone who's listening, that this is to make this feel authentic.
So, and then I started doing reels. So I feel like for me, it was when I don't have to, and I don't say this because I'm cocky. I'm saying it because I've gotten to the point where I'm not worried about filling my programs, because I know the pain points of my audience. I know what they're needing and I can speak to it. And so this past year was a really big pivotal year in my business, just because from the time that I said I want to work with high schoolers to now, that was about 2.5 years ago. And they started, and ironically, like I had started this program and didn't even market it. I don't even think it was barely on my website and had 3 people sign up. I'm like, oh, well, then you need to pay attention to those numbers, right? So this past year was just really pivotal with the number of people I'm getting in here in my groups, as well as my social media, as well as my email list. And I think, and I'm still tweaking my messaging, but I feel like I'm at a point where I'm okay if I don't have such a full calendar. I'm okay. Like, I don't just talk to anyone. I now, I vet them before they even get on my calendar. And I'm like, I've earned the right to vet people. Mm-hmm. Right. And for me, for the long time, like I always want to say, no, because on that 30-minute call, like I can provide something. But right now I'm at the point where I'm like, my time is really valuable. And unless you're qualified, meaning your teen wants to work with me, meaning you're ready to make the commitment, you're ready and prepared to make the investment, then you can grab a spot on my calendar. And I think that's having boundaries of my time, because I work a lot and I'm a workhorse and I'm relentless in that, but I've also earned that right to not talk to everyone. And that's this past year. I'm like, I've made it. I'm good.
What a great position to be in.
And I've said no, right? I've said no, I've chosen not to speak, or not, I shouldn't say not to speak, but I now am very particular with who I actually want to work with. And if that means not working with 3 to have the right one, I'm good. And I don't say that lightly, because I love to, I want to nurture and help and give these resources, but not anybody can earn space in my world. That sound right?
That sounds right. And that sounds, I think, probably from your stance, like, oh, do I sound like I'm like not wanting to help people a little bit? I know you're not, but really what you're saying for people who are listening, I'm not going to mansplain here, but I'm going to say, coming from a marketing perspective, it's when you're more clear about who you can help, they get more value. So you're actually protecting them from not wasting money or time of theirs, because like, look, I don't work with, people who don't want to be there. Like, it's not going to be a good situation. So getting really clear, having those filters up, let's actually go deeper with that. How do you filter out the people who aren't a good match for your services?
So part of it is the teenager has to want to work with someone. They have to be 100% owned and bought in before you even get before you even get in on my calendar. One of the first questions I ask the parents, I'm like, does your teenager know you're talking to me today? And if the answer is yes, and it's part of I have a whole form that you fill out on Calendly, is your teenager looking for support or looking to work with someone, with a professional? Yes. Are you willing to make the time commitment? Yes. Are you is this an investment that you're prepared to make? And I give them a range of how much the monthly cost could be. And they say yes. And then they earn that spot. So then I also know before, because I ask them a couple of different questions, like I know before I even get on that I can start narrowing down exactly how to pinpoint what their pain points are. And so the next step sort of in my process is then I meet with a teenager, because coaching will only work when the teen is 100% bought in. All of my teenagers like have fabulous results because they want additional support. They're tired of listening to their parents. Even though I can say the same things that their parents have said, I'm an outside mentor, right? I'm an outside person that can breathe this unbiased opinion and focus and things like that. I'm not worried how you got here. Let's figure out where you want to be this next weekend. We're going to go, right? So primarily it is about the teens, like, because if they want to be coached, they are going to do excellent in my program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that willingness is so critical to growth, right? If you're a willing participant, you can learn a lot.
And I maybe I talk myself out of clients, but if I am so conscious of the value and the investment that I want to ensure the results that I know my kids can get because I've seen it. And if I feel like they're not making the progress and they're just showing up, say, yeah, everything's fine. No, one syllable kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I'm all caught up with things. Like I can hear it now. I will reach out to the parent and say, this is what I'm seeing. We'll work for another couple months and see, or this next month and see, but he or she may not be getting the benefits of the program because I'm not sure that they're all bought.
Yeah. What a great approach to kind of keep parents in the loop so they can make the decision. So it's not like, what? I thought you guys were doing great. And it's like, no, well, they're giving me one word answers. They're resisting the coaching. Do not resist.
Yeah. And as much as, I want to help, I can only lead them so far. You know what that's like.
Right.
I can give you all the tools you need or share options and give you ideas. But at the end of the day, teenagers have to move forward and hold themselves accountable.
Yeah. Tell me about, actually, I'm really interested in the nuances of the Calendly, because I use Calendly for our inquiry calls for my business. And so are you using the feature where you can ask questions, and if they say no, then tell me how that works. Like, let's say they say, no, I'm not invested, or no, I'm not ready to commit. What happens on your Calendly? Does it go?
Okay. Yeah. Well, hold on. So I think there's a routing form and then there's a work form.
The routing form. Yeah. What happens if they're not ready, on your
form? If they're not ready, then they get redirected. They get redirected to my Thinkific course for teenagers if they're not quite ready.
Okay. I like that.
They can get directed to maybe my group coaching or some of my summer programs where they're like webinar series or what have you. And I'm actually launching a Shopify store this next month. And so that will be another amazing resources for families where they can say, here, my teen is not understanding what is ADHD, and boom, here's a download. You can read and PS as well as a video. So that will be directed there. So I have it organized that even whenever they get on my calendar, they get a follow-up email 30 minutes later with the link for their teen to book. Yeah. And then, by the way, this is my parenting Facebook group. This is additional resources. This is, what have you. And I just say, so your teen's not quite ready yet. So this is where these are some other resources that might get them a little bit more accustomed to me, what it would look like, kind of thing.
Okay. That's good to know, is like, because, for some people, they're not ready to make that investment in one-to-one coaching, which is much more expensive, or even group coaching. So sending them to a lower price course could be a great option, or even something even smaller eventually. It's like, okay, no to everything. Okay, well then here's my, handout with a calendar, or you can start there if you're not ready.
Yeah. And also I run 2 parent programs. So those are also, if your teen's not ready, but maybe you feel like things are happening in high school and you've been living with the ADHD diagnosis for a while, here's a great program where we dive deep into relationships and really how to partner with your teens in high school versus like being their executive functions, if I may. So that's also in that follow-up series as well.
Yeah. Is that on your website? The teens with ADHD, like, can they go through that sequence?
Yes, they can book a call right from there. And
Yeah,
then that,
I might go through it
yeah, and then
and be the resistant parent who can't get their kid to commit and just.
So what I can tell you is is it the routing forms that are really, those are the ones that were I got it like 70% right. And then Soraya, my business manager, went in, and then I'm like, you know what, this is too confusing. I'm just going back to this one.
Yeah.
But if the answers are no, then I put them over to my website, and then they can see the various options of other resources for the teenagers.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's like you anticipate everything that they're thinking about that they could potentially. I recently wrote this article on my blog. It was how to talk to your reluctant teen about executive function coaching, because I get that question so much. And so I put a script there. I was like, here's what they might say. Oh, I don't have time. I'm too busy. And I'm like, here's what you can say. But I think it's like knowing those pain points, right? Like even the little subtle ones, and addressing them. But now I'm thinking, okay, I have to fit that into my routing form. Like, have you talked to your kid? No. Okay. Read this article, then restart the blog or restart the process.
I think it's, it also helps the parents realize the coaching. Like, it's not therapy. Like, we all have our zones of genius. You and I have talked about this, where coaches have their zones of genius, therapists, psychologists, counselors. Like, so, I think going through that process as well is, what does a coach do? I'm like, well, we're not a therapist, and you can't just send your kid to us and talk about his feelings and everything, even though there's a ton of feelings around ADHD and executive functioning and parenting and being a teenager. So we all have that. And I think it also helps. I mean, there have been some parents where I've said, I think it's more of a therapy than working with me, if I may. So yeah. Helps them figure out maybe the better resources for their teens, because coaching is not for everyone.
Yeah. And for coaches out there, I think lots of new coaches, this is something I teach a lot about in my academy, is if you offer everything, if you're like a catch-all, you're kind of bound for disappointing some people, right? If you're saying, oh, I can do this and this and this, and whoever you send me, I'm just going to figure it out. You're not really an expert in those things. You are an expert in something, for sure. Everybody's an expert in something. But if you profess expertise because you just want clients so bad, like, yeah, you might have a few clients up front, but you might damage your reputation because you're promising so much that you can't really deliver on. I'll give my example, which is like,
that's a great point, Sean.
I'm not good at math. Like if I said, if I was like, yeah, like send your math kid to me, that would probably, and then I couldn't help them, because I remember having that experience where I was like a tutor, before I became an executive function coach. And I was like, I can't tutor math, like, at this level. Like it was like calculus. And I was like, I can't help you. I can give you ideas. I can help direct you to your teacher, but I cannot commit to promising this level of like expertise on this. And so it really made me think about, okay, yeah, niching down and really focusing on like, what can I offer and what can I not, what can I do and what can I not?
And I think that's another area where I realized that, I am where I wanted to be, is because of that niche, right? And every time, like, for example, this past semester, I had 3 or 4 middle school families reach out and said, will you please run a middle school group coaching? And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, only if I get 5 in there, right? I got 5 in there. And I really didn't want to do it, but I'm like, I want to meet the needs. I know it's valuable, what have you. And halfway through, they're like, oh, we can't make this time commitment. It's only twice a month, right? They know exactly when it was. And this, that, the next thing. And it turned out that I had 1 as of last week, because and then it's not them, because they overcommitted. That's on them. But what I did, like, I went against what I said I wasn't going to, who I wasn't going to work with.
Yeah.
And Sean, like, that, like, every single time something like that happens, you're like, why did I do that? So now it just confirms, like, I don't care if you beg me, we are not working with middle schoolers. Like, no offense, but that's where I am. not beg me, but there are times, would you make an exception? And it's hard for me when somebody asks me that, because that's something that I say was, well, there are exceptions to the rule. So would that be something that you would be willing to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh gosh, I hate saying no, but I have to be. You got to be true to who you are out there, and stay in your lane, because when you stay in your lane, your messaging just hits spot on every single time. And I don't even, all these summits that I talk on, I don't even prepare, because it's second nature. I know world of ADHD. I know the world of teens, and that's my niche. That's who I am. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah. You're like I like to think of it as an inch wide and a mile deep. Like you can talk so artfully, easily on it, because you know everything about it, because you don't have to know everything about everything. You just have to know everything about executive function coaching for teens. And that's even though it's very specific, it's also very expansive, right? There's so much to it.
Right. Trust me, I have like 10, there's a ton to talk about. And then you talk about routines, and you talk about, the warning signs of how you're pulling yourself out when you're overthinking, like all these things. And so if anyone is listening and are questioning their messaging or who they're working with, don't be afraid to get and be like, this is who I want. It's like practice. If you have, you and I were talking about, I'm like, in an ideal world, it would be great for me to have like a 9th and 10th grade coach, and I would work with the 11th and 12th grade coaches. But just be super niche, and that you can't be the jack of all trades in this industry, because it will come back to bite you. And then you will be like you, exactly what you just shared. You won't burn out, and you won't be as effective as what you want to be.
Yeah. How did you get more specific in your messaging? I always tell people, write a value proposition that has like a few parts. Like, I help this person overcome this by teaching them this, so they feel this.
Oh my gosh.
What was your process for getting really specific?
Wait, say that again.
Okay. So I tell people to write a value proposition. So it's like, I help blank, the age group, and it could even be as specific as the gender or whatever. I help this overcome whatever challenges they're facing. So, I'll give my example of mine. Like, I help middle, high school, and college students overcome procrastination, disorganization, and education anxiety. And then by teaching them time management, follow through, communication, so they feel, what is the value? Empowered, motivated, and prepared for life.
You need to be my marketing coach.
Well, no, I mean, I was like, because I'm kind of like a black and white thinker sometimes. And I'm like, I need a template, a structure. And I got that from Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, I think, wow, great book. If anyone's like struggling with their messaging, check out Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. But I'm curious for you, like what helped you? Because clearly you've gotten so specific about, teens with ADHD, right? How did you,
Again, even being even more specific, I thrive in the educational environment, right? I thrive when there's a student that comes to me and they're 20, 15 plus missing assignments. Like, I'm relentless in that space. And what I mean by that, the slower processors tend to they get overwhelmed quite quickly. And then when they get overwhelmed, these things pick up. But if you think about teenagers, and this might be even more niching down, there are hours of what happens from 4 until 11, 3 or 5 days a week. Like, that's where my niche is, because all their productivity, all their studying, everything leads to that, which ultimately leads to their grades, their performance, their productivity, right? And their success as a student. So, and part of that is really managing the time. Like you said, we work on all these executive functions. So I don't have like a value statement, but that's where, and maybe I should, but that's where my niche is. And I have kids that are getting A's and B's, but, cannot get up on their own, need routines, what have you. But, and some that come to me with social skills challenges, and I'm like, said no to that, have somebody for that, can recommend that. But I really am gifted with all aspects of education and taking it from Schoology, Skyward, Google Classroom. What's your plan? Like, how are you going to break it down? Note taking, right? Overthinking, assignments, perfectionism, all those things. So basically everything happens in their teen world from 4 to 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Managing all of that, because that's where the gold happens. I mean, that's like when everything is, put to the test of what they're turning in and how productive we're going to be, and their self-care and taking time and decompressing and all those things, managing all those elements.
yeah, that's a very specific block of time, 4 to 11 weekdays, where in some cases families are breaking down and chaos is happening. And I mean, let's be real, if when these things are not being addressed, parents are like fighting, they're like, oh, I can't, this sometimes it leads to divorce or separation because they're so stressed. So I can, and I'm sure you get this too, I continuously getting parents leaving feedback like lifesaver, family dynamic improved, like all those things. And I'm like, okay, we're definitely doing something right, and for us, it's simple in a way. It's right. We're just helping kids get their homework done. But that is such a pain point. Like, God, when you talk about a pain point, it's like 4 to 11 in the week. Those are the hours, and not the zone of genius for a lot of parents, that you can kind of pick apart and perfect.
Yeah. What happens? And there are parents, and I said, listen, would you entrust me to take all the academics on for these kids? Right? Like, I check the Schoology, and then I want you, meaning the parent, I want you just to let me handle it, and you enjoy your kid, because they're going to be out of the house in no time flat. Like, so there are parents where I'm completely hands-on with managing all parts of, and that's comforting for the client too, right? Because they're like, oh, I get to work with Kelly on this. I'd rather work with anybody other than my parents. Not that there's anything special about me, but the fact that someone else is going to partner along and hold accountable, and and have that rapport and relationship where I can say the same thing, say it differently, just because I'm me and I'm not their parents, and they will listen to me. Lord willing, if I'm doing my job right, they'll get the grades and we'll be above board, and no failing and no summer school and what have you. So, yeah.
So the first part of getting speaking events, kind of going back to that, is you have to have a valuable thing that people want to hear about, right? So you've absolutely done that. And I know I know a lot of good coaches that have no audience really. They have referral partners and things like that, but you've built a sizable audience.
Yes.
And talk to me. Let's talk first about the Facebook group, because I think like when you have that many people tuning into your work each week, it's a very powerful thing. Tell us about, how do you build your Facebook group from 0 to 1,000? Let's start there, because you've gone far beyond that. But how did you get, what process and strategies do you recommend for getting your Facebook group 0 to 1,000?
I was relentless on social media. I was, and the one thing, and you've probably heard it from marketing people, you've probably heard it from CEOs and everyone else, is you have to be consistent. So I showed up when I first launched my Facebook group. I showed up and I did a Front Porch Friday every week for like almost 2 years. And it was about pain points, everything ADHD. Like I have an enormous like library of content with video and with content. It's crazy. And that started building that up. I went to like 17 people in there, and it started building. And again, that's when I was broad all around. So I was working with parents, I was working with professionals, I was working with kids and middle schoolers and parents together, kind of thing. And I think speaking on some summits, but even back at that time, I wasn't speaking on summits, but I did run a couple challenges, right? And I just remember, I said, you know what? I'm tired of doing Facebook Front Porch Fridays. It's exhausting me. I'm just going to go in and do shorter snippets. And so I switched out. So when I niched down, which was 3 years ago, everything started changing, because I knew exactly what was happening in the classroom. I knew what was happening in the home. I knew the challenges of procrastinating, of overthinking, of not being able to get started, of overanalyzing, of self-defeat, self-paralysis, right? All these things. So I just literally started focusing, and I showed up and I provided value, and I just went live. Literally, I just went live, and then it just, like, I don't even people come into my group, I think, because of the analytics. And that's the other thing. Everything's about an algorithm. You know that. So when you start allowing comments in there, and then you start commenting to them, like all of a sudden that algorithm changes, and it's going to pick you out as the teen high schooler like person. And so I probably get 25 a day in there, and most of them give me their email. Like 70% of them give me an email. So if you think about that, they're already my warm audience. And then they get a weekly email, like when it's part of their onboarding and the questions, would you like to be on Kelly's email list to learn about blah blah blah, right? And so out of everyone who's coming into my group, about 70% of them, if not more, depending on the week, give me their email. So I already have them, and then they go through a sales funnel. So
that's one of the questions in your when you open up the group is like, what's your email, or would you like to share your email? Is that correct?
I have four. I think I have four questions on there, and one of it is, and I say, like, Kelly is an executive function or an ADHD life coach, and she works with high schoolers throughout the academic year. Would you like to be a part of her email list where she provides weekly tips and strategies, blah blah blah? And literally, like, there's four questions in there, and 80% of them give me their email.
Yeah, and let me ask you about that, because I always like, Facebook is just confusing to me.
Tell me that.
And so, okay, you get they answer the question, that sends you a message, and I'm like, can you just walk me through taking that email and getting on your email list? Do you basically go? Is there a way to export all of these emails,
Okay.
or
You do it. I have it all automated. So
Okay.
an extension. It's a Google extension. It's called Group Leads. You can
Okay.
set all of that up, and I have literally a spreadsheet of 8,000 names on it, and it goes right. It's all connected, so it goes right to. I have my email list in Active Campaign, so all of them go over to Active Campaign, and then they get put in my funnel, and then they get added to the master contact list, which means every Thursday at 10 a.m. they get my email. So as much as I used to like copy and paste, I'm like, oh, this is like time sucking, and I am not interested in that. So we found Group Leads to do that.
And so does it automatically take them from that and put them into your thing?
Yes, it goes into a Google sheet.
Yeah.
And then yes. And then from there, my Google sheet is connected to my Active Campaign. So
Okay.
I don't copy paste anything, nothing.
I need that. Who can help me set that up?
It is an extension. If one time you and I can share a screen off of this. It took me a while
but you figured it out. Okay. So
I'm saying that because it took me a while, meaning I'm really tech challenged, but they have updates, and put it this way, I know how to do the updates now because they also have a Facebook group where you can answer all the questions, and it's some guy over in Nigeria that runs it, and he's brilliant. He responds to you like this.
Yeah. Amazing.
Damn you. Yes.
It's so interesting because talk about a niche, right? Like, okay, getting the email list from the Facebook group to your actual, like, that's a niche, but it is highly valuable. And there's like probably millions of people who, or, a lot of people who are like trying to figure that out, and they avoid it, like me, because they're like, oh, this is just too difficult. So really good to know Group Leads.
You're trading time for, it's time. It's your time that you're gaining by having all this automated. So for me, whatever that monthly cost is, or not monthly, I don't even think it's so reasonable. I'm like, I would pay so much more for that service so that I don't have to pay anybody to copy and paste.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely have to connect with you on that, but I'll go check that out. Okay. So you're getting, all these people are showing up because you're going live. Your group is growing. Now, what about the content? Like, as far as after you niche down and you knew what you were focusing on, I think one thing I get overwhelmed with sometimes is like, okay, how many times can I say the same thing over and over, in a different way? And I mean, it's like, that's my challenge. How do you make the content easy for your lives, or, keep it fresh, but also, we're kind of sharing the same general idea. What works for you there?
So let me start by what didn't work. What I was finding, and it's really interesting because personally, I'm really organized. I mean, I'm organized professionally, but what I mean by that is I used to have a social media girl and we would go in there and say, this is the subject. This is what these are the talking points. And I never stuck to the plan ever. And I was surprised at myself because I love seeing it all out there, but I'm like, I'm not sure if that resonates with me today, what have you. So I took all that away and I just said, you know what? I'm just going to be authentic. I'm coming in here. I might share about a session. I might share about what it is, what do coaches do, what something in my life. There's always pain points. It might be, obviously I never name names, but I'll say, I had a client, this is one of the topics that came up, and this is something that really, really worked for us. And I know if you're overwhelmed, blah, blah, blah. As a parent of teenagers, I get what all the pain points are as well, because I'm living with it. So for me, not having it structured was a huge blessing, because then I could just be really raw and really organic, if I may. And there's always something coming up. And I don't ever feel like I shouldn't say ever feel like there's nothing I would talk, or continue. It's okay to also repurpose information. If you think about it, any given time in my group, there's 1,000 new people coming there a month. Well, they haven't heard, the month of October, for October awareness, I went live every single day for 3 minutes. Live every single day. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm probably going to do the same thing again this coming year, because I have all of my templates. I had it all laid out. And I'm like, I'm just going to redo that again, because your people, and that's the other thing, even if they've heard it before, they still need to hear it. Mm-hmm. So part of it is don't overthink it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I haven't done really well is I don't share enough about me. It's a fine line between my privacy as a mom, my privacy as my kids, all those kind of things. Because my kids are following me on Instagram. They know all my stories. So for me, which is for me, sharing about me, for me was just off limits. But then how's somebody else really going to relate to me? So I've gotten a lot better about that over the last couple of months. I'm not that I won't share, but there are some things I just don't want out there, because it's not that it's bad. It's just something that I don't want out there. But that's how your audience gets to know you. It's like know, like, and trust, right? All the marketing people say that they have to know you. They might know me in there, but they don't. If they don't trust me with their content or trust me with their kids or something like that, they won't move forward. So
how did you decide on the platform? So for example, you've obviously done great on Facebook. I know you're also on other platforms. Do you go live across them? Do you choose certain ones to go live on, or produce? Tell me about kind of your strategy for which platform you're using and focusing on at any given time.
So Facebook has always been my one. So I have a page and then I have a group. And Instagram has always been a second, I'm just going to have a presence on there, but my people are really in Facebook. And now what I've learned, my social media girl had some family stuff. So I've been doing all my social media since January. And what I mean by that is I started doing reels, because I'm I love being on video. I don't freak out about being on video. I think with reels, it helps me focus because it's not max of 90 seconds, right? So I have to be that's helping me get right to the point. So my whole sort of mindset around Instagram has changed, because I'm also growing on Instagram now because of reels and because of my carousel posts. I'm changing out how I'm sharing information, how I'm literally speaking to my people. So my system, I use the Later platform, and that links to my Instagram and it links to my Facebook page. And then from my Facebook page, I just share it over to my group. Also, and the other thing I love about Canva and not Later is Later you can do all the carousel posts, right? You can do all the carousel posts in Later. You can't do it in Canva. Canva has their own content planner, which I love because it goes directly to your group. So if you're running a Facebook group and you don't have carousel posts, you can schedule everything within the Canva platform. I love that.
Mhm.
But I've streamlined a lot of things. And there are times when I just switch out the background and say this and put the same stuff out there. I think that's the other thing that I've gotten overwhelmed. And I think as I've learned, it's like, don't overcomplicate it. Like, I think I started a year ago telling my staff, repurpose. I'm tired. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't put a different background, use a different graphic and put it out there. Like, I am, we can get ADHD fatigue. We can get entrepreneur fatigue. We can get social media fatigue.
Yeah.
And so don't overcomplicate it. And if it's just a handful, like if you just want to talk about strictly the executive functions, you can make a reel about what are the 8, or you can make a carousel post about the 8 executive functions. And then you can have a carousel post from there, and you can do a reel on that, on different things, strategies around working memory. Like, build it deeper in, but keep it consistent, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So what I've been doing in that zone is I've been putting out a weekly blog article with my team every week, and then we'll do a live on that subject on our Instagram page, and then I might take that and do some TikTok stuff on it. So it's like it keeps me focused on one theme, but I can do different content or even repurpose stuff.
Yeah.
But it is, that's, I'm glad you shared that. Like, what I'm really hearing is like, just show up. Like,
Just show up.
you're already gold, you're already awesome. So you just have to show up for your audience, be available, share what's on your mind, what struggles your students might be going through. That's going to help you connect with people.
Yeah. So I think for me, I mean, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Twitter. I used to be on Twitter. I don't have a YouTube channel. Those are big pictures in the end, but everybody's like, you should be on TikTok. I'm like, I don't know, probably because I'm speaking to teenagers, but at this point, all of that really overwhelms me. And I just need to keep doing what's like eventually maybe, but.
Yeah. I mean, you've figured it out. And so it's like, I would think just keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm really excited about the Shopify store. Cause as an entrepreneur, you and I talk about this, like, how do you, fill up your calendar, or how do you fill up your bank account with not just private coaching people?
Right.
I'm like, I have so much content people need to, like, that people can access. I don't know how to do it. Then I'm like, Shopify. I can have a whole digital store with PDFs and slideshows and recordings and make that and give this out. Like, I'm so excited. I can't wait, because I can just say, here's a $9 upload. Is $9 worth you having 15 strategies to help your kid? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. So there you have that, right? So that's going to be a really great, an additional resource that I'm comforted and calm knowing that I can support others who are really needing it.
How does the Shopify fit into your outreach plan? Like, tell me about how people are accessing it, because they're in your group, they're on your email list. How are they getting to Shopify and getting the value there?
Yeah. So I just sort of did a behind the scenes and showed everybody on my stories this morning, but it's the first time I've talked about it today, and it's not quite up yet. But we're doing like 2 or 3 more weeks, I think, because we have to go through the trials and make sure, all the back end of all the automations are working. But what I'll do there is I will, if I talk about, say, anxiety, right? I'm like, if I'm doing a live, or if I'm doing a reel, here are 3 of the biggest stressors of teenagers. If you want to learn coping skills, click on my Shopify store, what have you. So I will be plugging it in my lives. I will be plugging it in my reels. I will be plugging it in my weekly emails to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So for every topic, you're just going to be taking products, things you've created, and basically creating themes around it, so they can go to that section of your Shopify store and buy, anxiety management workbook, or, course, or.
It's basically, so the private, the intensive for my parents, I've taken each of those 6 intensives and I've broken them out. Mm-hmm. Somebody may not need a 504 because I got it, but somebody might not understand RSD and impulsivity, right? And anxiety, right? Or they may not really understand what executive functions are. So it'll be an a la carte, or it'll be like all 3 of these bundled together, or a great thing, right? So I'm speaking to the pain points, and then obviously I'll have, again, I haven't created anything new, which is what the other thing that I want to just, I don't know how much time we have, but when when you look at your content, and I would highly advise you to just look in Canva, right?
Yeah.
Because I was looking at all these things. I'm like, oh, I could do this. I could do that. That would make better sense. I can. So trust yourself that you already have the content there. Don't make any more work. Package it differently. Let
Yeah.
everyone know this is pre-recorded. It's sort of like a evergreen. This is pre-recorded, and so that they know, okay, well, Kelly was live here talking to 15 people in her 504 accommodations. That's still valuable to me. I don't care if she's live or not, right?
Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I want that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good message because people get overwhelmed by feeling like they have to create something new and be different. And what I'm hearing you say, and what I'm also discovering too, is yeah, you can just show up and then
Yeah,
guide people to the resources you've already created or just kind of pull them out of the folds, right? Like, I
yeah,
think I was in a meeting the other day with some educational therapists and they were wondering, how do I run virtual sessions? And like on the spot, I put together a little table with like 10 different things that would help them and
yes,
shared it. And like for them, it was amazing. And it was just like, well, I had all that in my head. I could just drop those in there.
yeah. And I think like I probably will have maybe 10 offers for parents and 10 for high schoolers, and I haven't recreated anything.
Hmm.
I've just dropped. We have a whole like back end system of having a Google Drive where here's a recording for this, here's a subject, here's a recording of the slideshow. So if you think about 30 products, I've not done anything to create anything new.
Hmm.
So think about that, right? I'm not in here doing videos on what's anxiety and what have you, and doing all my slideshows. It's everything that I already have in place.
Yeah.
It's PDFs for because I'm taking basically my high school group coaching. It's all of those emails, all of those PDFs and those recordings with here's 10 tips, 10 ways for teenagers to be proactive.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, to tell me that people aren't going to go in because that's really, those are the kind of tips that parent can say, check this out. Is there something on here that you feel confident doing that maybe you weren't aware that you could do? Right.
Hmm.
So I'm not really
Yeah.
creating anything. I'm not making it more work on me. Not that I won't do the work, good gracious, right? But I'm not making it, I am not, I'm not doing anything that I have to go back and redo and record, if I may.
Right. Record.
Re-record.
uh, is it record or record?
I don't
Re-record.
have to do any additional recording.
Yeah. We've got a question from the audience here. Do you use a CRM backend to make it easy to pull?
Okay, so this is where you're going to be like, what? No, I don't do any of that. Okay, but maybe I'm not understanding what all CRM does. I don't have, everything I do lives within Active Campaign, and my whole email campaigns in there. So for my private clients, maybe that is my CRM. I just feel like it should be something more organized. But for my private clients, they all get put into private client. Then they get a welcome email with the all the like the Zoom links, my text, all that kind of stuff. So any offer that I have gets put into Active Campaign, and I make an automation with it. So somebody signs up for my ADHD 101, they immediately get the welcome. Then we wait until the day before, June 10th, and they get the prep email, and then wait for 24 hours, and then they get the replay. And I have all of those things in an automation, so that I can speak to, okay, these are my ADHD people. These are my Rockstar private clients. These are my win over your teen. These are my master list, who gets what kind of thing. Don't know if that
Yeah.
answers your
Like
question.
segmenting them, like everybody's getting into a
Yes,
group or a segmentation. And that's like stuff I've been trying to learn more about is like, okay, yeah, because you have to understand your different, even within your niche, you're going to have different audiences. And how do
right.
you deliver them what they want?
Right. So
That takes time.
I don't have a portal where people come in and grab and drop and drag and grab things. What I do is when I'm done, I create like a Google Doc, a content library for that particular offer. So I have ADHD 101, and I have my high school group coaching content folder, and in there monthly they'll have their PDFs and their recordings. So they just, all I have to do is literally drop a link, and then they can see the whole January through May topics and get the PDFs and the recording. So I don't have a necessary portal, if I may, where people can get my text and send me an email. It's really, I use ActiveCampaign in my Google Docs. May not be sustainable for the big picture, but right now I'm doing Shopify and I have thought about a CRM, but yeah, that's just what I know right now.
Well, that's great. So if anyone else has any questions before we wrap up here, drop them in the chat box. But Kelly, I wanted to ask, tell us about where you see yourself, your business in 2 years, or.
Well, my oldest is going to be graduating high school and my husband's already retired. So ideally, part of launching the Shopify store and these other products and offers is really to give me a little bit of breathing room. So I coach one day and I work with maybe families, but more obviously like a high end where I just take a handful of clients and then maybe go live twice a month on a Zoom with people in my community, but really have a business in place where my passive income can grow. Although I absolutely love coaching teenagers, and it's what, it's like part of being an entrepreneur is knowing what you're really good at and knowing where you need to farm it out and delegate it. And I definitely do that very, very well because I'm not gifted in a lot of these things and I have no problem paying somebody to do it because it saves me time and it decreases my stress. So I want to coach and I want to continue to go live and to continue to grow in my community so that they have a support system and they know that they can find resources, whether that's in my Facebook group. I don't foresee that changing in a long way because I want to help others. It's just how I'm doing that will be a bit different in 2 years.
Thanks for sharing. We got a question here. Do you have to copyright your Shopify material?
You can copyright all you want. Yes, they are copyrighted, but people can share it. Like unfortunately, it's no different than if somebody's in my private coaching or my Facebook group. No, excuse me, or my high school group where they have the PDFs and stuff. Like somebody can print it out or just forward it to somebody. So that's one of the things that is not so fun about digital products because I do have a disclaimer on there, but people can share that stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah. And on this question, I think I'm probably too liberal or something on this response, but I mean, when I publish a course, when I publish products, I feel like in a sense I'm copywriting it because I'm publishing it first and if someone copied it and end up building a whole business off it, I'd probably have a good record that was like, hey, this was done here first. However, I do caution people against being too, I guess, hesitant to put stuff out there because you want to go and get everything perfectly copyrighted or, I'm sure I could grow in that area, but if I over focused on trying to get like everything perfectly copyrighted, whatever method that is, I wouldn't be building an audience and growing because I'd be withholding so much. So I do, I think you have to set up systems to sell your materials and sell your products. And that's important. But I often hear this from people who aren't putting anything out there. They're like, oh, I got to copyright this and this and this. And they don't put anything out. And I'm like, well, can't really build an audience if you don't share your work in some fashion because you're so cautious. So I caution people against being overly cautious.
Right. I am getting my whole, like my Teens with ADHD trademark. It takes a year to do that. So by the end of this year, that'll be done. But I do have, those kind of things. But I think just unfortunately with the digital products, you just have to go with it and hope that, you're still making a difference the right way where people pay for the products. But, you can tell that the day is long, but, if somebody's sister has a kid, if your niece or nephew needs the resources and then your sister is buying the product, they're going to be here. Oh, you can save yourself $10 and just da. That's
right? Control what you can control. So
exactly.
Kelly, if people want to follow up with you, learn more about what you're doing, check out your courses, where are the best places where they can find you?
So you can find me on my email. If you want to email me, it's Kelly@teenswithadhd.com. Very authentic. Kelly and Teens with ADHD.com. See, Kelly B. No. My Facebook group is Parenting ADHD Teens. So, and my website is Teens with ADHD, or also on Instagram, Teens with ADHD. You can find me there.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Kelly. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your expertise. I got a ton of value out of this. I know anybody who listens to this or was listening is going to. If people want to re-listen to this episode, check out more episodes of Earn More Tutoring. You can go to earnmoretutoring.com. You can also go to any podcast provider and search Earn More Tutoring. This is episode 61, so there's tons of information there about how to build your business, how to get more clients, how to clarify your brand messaging. I hope this is helpful. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining today. It was an absolute pleasure to chat with you.
Well, thank you for having me. You're a delight, and I'm blessed to have you in my world.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.